I'm pulling it up right now.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Stone Ridge Confab. It has been, as usual, a hectic last 2 weeks. I don't know about you gentlemen, but I have a quick story to share with the audience.
You do it. We need to hear it.
I think I became a plumber at some point during this week. So if you follow Facebook at all, one of the things that I had just recently was a plugged toilet from a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old decided to see how much toilet paper that they could stuff into the toilet, along with other goods that I do not know what they were. And they stuck the toilet, they plugged it, basically not at the toilet, not at the, where the flange is, but 50 feet in the pipe further down, right, as part of that. So yeah, that
I was going to say when you first started the story, I was going to say 3 years. That's impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still impressive, but in a much different sense.
So part of the story. Yeah, interesting science experiment, right, Sabrina? Totally agree. So what I had to do is I had to go to the rental place to pick one of those automated, snake things, right, that you get. Not the little one that you get at Home Depot. Yeah. It's a 100-foot, 5/8-inch steel snake that happens with it. And I tell you, I brought it home, and it takes 2 people to lift it to get it into the house because it's like 200 some pounds. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm looking at the hole in the where the line goes, and I'm just like, I'm a little bit worried about this because this looks pretty heavy duty. Well, I will tell everyone who is curious that's on the stream, it was a success. I didn't break the pipe. We were able to unclog everything. Yeah, for pure rotor rooting is what we're going to call it from now on. But it was...
By the end of full quarantine, Scott, you're going to be licensed and certified, like plumber, construction, electronics, home goods, You're rounding the bases.
If you don't try it, right? You gotta try it. My wife was looking at me though the entire time, and she's like, "You break that pipe, you know what's gonna happen." And I'm just like, "Oh boy."
I expect you at some point to just start doling out waivers.
Right.
This is Scott Rpa entering the chat here. So you know. I will try some crazy stuff.
Yeah. One of the things is I am a do-it-yourselfer. I like to experiment with things. So yeah. Awesome. So I thought I'd share that with everyone. It's a beautiful day outside. The sun is shining in Minnesota. Everyone is happy. So it's just it's been a great week though. Pretty busy. How about you guys?
Yeah. I was telling you a little bit about it before we kicked on. I actually just rolled off of a demo this morning that brought together D365 customer service, omni-channel, Power Virtual Agents, Power Apps portals, live agent handoffs, Power Automate to go scoop up case information. I was complaining a little bit about friendly names. So it really was a platform story, and took a while to snap everything together. Omnichannel demo trial configuration. If anybody out there has tried it, Microsoft doesn't do a very good job documenting that. So if you need some pointers, hit me up. But after some of those nitty gritty, just kind of headaches and pain points in the provisioning and configuration of the omni-channel messaging services, blah 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 blah, it was awesome.
That's
It
awesome.
was a heck of a lot of fun, and it's for a great group out in I think Germany. So it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Marcus, how was yours? Good week so far.
It's
Busy week.
been yeah, it's been good. Digging into some manufacturing ISV stuff that we've been working with. So batch manufacturing. Been knee deep in quality control and feature management and bomb recipes. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So I
Yeah.
know this week what we're really looking at, and welcome chat. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't even say anything to everyone that's on there. I'm seeing the chat. I'm so used to it. Rob, Deb, Dave, Bill, thanks for joining. We're looking at having a fun session today. I mean, today what we're really focusing on more is that, right, the RPA UI flow, the full, like, how do we automate things, right, inside of Dynamics 365 and in the business process world, right? So I know,
I
Adam,
think
you've
our
got some
our
fun.
message,
Yeah,
we've got like our whole theme, I think, today is we've done Power Automate spotlights, and we really haven't gone much beyond like record retrieval, quick data updates, and some of the simple stuff. We're really dovetailing out from that today, and we're going to be taking a look at branches and features, some preview features, new features that bring just new life and new capabilities to Power Automate. That sounds a little cheesy, but we're talking about process analysis. I know, Scott, you're doing some desktop and UI flow, some actual robotic process automation with bridging the gap, the digital gap between cloud and on-premises environments
correct.
without middleware. So this is exciting stuff, Marcus. We're going to take a look at some some uses outside of just like BC updates. So we're getting to that next layer down and looking at what's new, what's exciting, and really especially for manufacturers and quality folks, what can really help out. So
Yeah.
we'll have a lot to take a look at today.
Awesome. Well, it should be exciting then. So, with that, we've got our 5 minute intro. Let's jump in. I know, Marcus, that you had some of your RPA or the UI flow that you set up as well. And maybe while we're
Yep.
going through this as well, I keep on, and this is for my education as well, Adam, a little bit. So, RPA, UI flow, like, they've been changing names a bit recently as well throughout this process, right? In terms of what we use for automation. Like they had a V1, so to speak, of like the UI flows that you would then, install an app on, and we call it robotic processing automation as well. But what do we have a better definition of all those tools as we go through
It,
this?
in my brain, we're throwing RPA around as a concept, and
Yep.
UI flows is more of the label,
Yep.
for the Power Automate stack. So this is Microsoft's, as far as I can tell, first foray into, because there are other groups out there, Automation Anywhere, and a few of the some of the trendier startups that are kind of blazing the trail. So it's not that it's brand new territory, but this is Microsoft's first. Here you go. Here's the start with RPA capabilities. And so we have cloud flows, we have on demand, we have triggers. Now we've got UI flows where we can, use the front end and use identify through the technology, identifying elements on a form or elements on a screen to again bridge that cloud and on-premises divide. So using some desktop pieces, using some, the services are hosted in the cloud, but we do have to essentially have a gateway, a little door into our local machines, or a computer, a physical device, to access and see and analyze and process these, maybe console applications or legacy apps, or like a nav or a GP or something that you're queuing up from your machine. So RPA concept, UI flows is really like the
It's
brand.
what we use
It's
to
the
do it.
tool.
Yep, it's the
Yeah.
tool, right? And then Power BI, Power Automate Desktop is really that UI flow integration capability, right? Where we're
Desktop workspace,
just
a little bit
defining
more
that.
oomph.
Yep,
Yeah, it's,
yep.
if anybody's cracked open like the Azure Bot Framework Composer, or we even have D365 desktop now, guys. I didn't know if you knew that, but we have a brand new standalone desktop, offline capable thick client application for D365. So Microsoft is almost, it's not like it's a reversion,
Offline.
but they're understanding that, you know, there are some scenarios in a lot of businesses that you can't go full cloud right away, and there will always be these hybrid scenarios. So
Yeah.
The Power Automate desktop is awesome, and it comes with its own slate of goodies, you know, and we're going to take a look at some of the stuff you've done, Scott, I think.
Yeah, it should be fun. And then before we move, though, Rob did say nice background. Marcus, you do need to move your head real quick to give. Give.
Yeah, you were the for a while, like, you can't see the symbol. You were the embodiment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
Well, there you go. It is the 5-year anniversary. I thought, you know, it was only appropriate to
commemorate.
Pay a little respect.
Respect.
Here, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. We
All
are
right.
in Minneapolis, for goodness sake.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I'm going to flip over now to the screen. So, Marcus, we do see your amazing flow set up here that you have. So,
all the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not doing the UI interaction, but I really like this. I like this flow. I like the concept here. I think it actually comes up often with clients, and so the scenario here or the use case is really, we've got and this was actually a prospect of ours that actually had this real live scenario that they wanted to work through. So what they did is they performed service in the field, and they had essentially service techs that were filling out paper documents. And then they would bring them back to the office. They would get scanned. They would get loaded into SharePoint, and then someone would go do a billing process. And they had automated basically the ability to populate using Adobe Forms, a form, and allowing the tech in the field to post that to a SharePoint site. But they still had to manually bill it. So what we wanted to do was to close the gap on that process to say, well, could we automate the billing routine of that transaction? And so that's what we did. And so this is the scenario worked up. So basically, I've got a SharePoint site. I have the ability to upload a document. It doesn't have to be a PDF, but that's what they did. They would populate then the job and the task that they're working on, and then we set the status as was it billed or not, that sort of thing. Then this Power Automate routine. Pretty simple connectors. What I like about this is you don't have to be really technical to make this work. So this is an example. I'm not, you know, an in-depth developer, you know, like what Scott could probably do, but not my thing. But still, I'm able to look at a SharePoint site, and I can monitor the SharePoint site. So, you know, a very easy built-in connector that just says when a file is created, start a process. So very easy to do that. I'm doing some do and tell routines just to make sure that we've populated a job, we've populated a task. So pretty simple stuff. I'm picking up the identifier of the object. So I just need that to get the file basically moved. Then I'm doing this HTTP post routine. And the really cool thing about this is I've exposed this job journal object inside of Business Central. So if I'm inside of Business Central, look at the right version here. Yeah. And if you go out to your web services, so again, right through the UI, I can do this. I don't need a lot of technical expertise here, but I can expose then that service, that job journal service, so that I can interact with it via Power Automate. So that's all I did. I exposed the job journal, and I suppose I could search for it. So show you that.
Okay, 201.
Yeah, so there it is. So job journal entries, very easy to expose that. I just added that as a web service. It's exposed. I'm using the post option with the HTTP post option within the Power Automate. I'm passing a bunch of variables in, both off of the SharePoint site and then into, or just some default values, right?
Yep.
I'm posting a notification just to send an email that says, "Yep, it's been sent." I wanted to play with Teams, so I'm posting to a Teams channel that says, "Yep, the transaction's been posted." So that's the way it works, and it's pretty simple. It creates a job journal transaction inside of Business Central. Pretty easy. Creates a billing record inside of Business Central that then can be billed. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. What this really allowed them to do was to have eliminate the time that it took to actually process these transactions. So the manual keying of them eliminates data entry errors, but the timeliness of the data was really key for them. So what they wanted to be able to do was to have the person in the field be able to, update the document, and then they can actually look at the job or the billing record within 5-10 minutes really of the activity being performed. So talk about crunching down the process of billing just of itself, getting an invoice out, for example, to the customer. So some cool things. Honestly, it was fairly easy to put together. So I think I asked you, Scott, about this this post option. We worked through actually, I think user authentication was the key there, just to make sure we had the right user ID and that sort of thing to set up that authentication method. But otherwise, everything else was really straightforward. So time saver, accuracy, pretty cool process to run in Power Automate.
And the beauty of this, we're talking about automation, right? So, I mean, a lot of people are like, well, you got to do UI automation or something like that. Like this is just some basic aspect. And what's cool about Business Central, like if we bring this, like even expand it further. So I know in chat people are asking like, is there any way to link the document or URL to the job ledger? And the answer is yes. Like the pages that are exposed inside of Business Central, if you don't want to use the API methods, you can expose a page as a web service. So any page that you're interacting with inside of Business Central is technically a web service as well. You can publish it, you can then add records to it, you can read records that are related to it. So if you think and take this and scale it out where it's maybe not a job journal, but you want to attach a document to something, or you want to pass an item journal to post as part of it, and even exposing posting actions, like some of the actions themselves are also then exposed as part of that, so you can then do that, or even theoretically create a code unit to, expose that as a web service that you could post as well too. So that's pretty. That's actually
slick. A really key. That's a key thing, Scott, to be able to automate the posting routine. I've done that with other clients where you're looking at a data import and via a web service call a general journal posting, for example. So you don't have to worry about. Well, not only is it the time involved in posting a transaction, but from an audit perspective, that no one's touched the record.
Yep. Exactly. And I know Jessica appreciate the format, love the format of the presentation is what we got in chat. So we appreciate that. We just love to have fun and teach as much as we can, right?
That's going Frappy's way. That's all him. He's the captain.
Right.
I'm the captain now. Well, no, he's the
You're
captain.
But, you're the captain.
In terms of all the OBS and streaming,
it's fun. It's fun. All right, so that's awesome. So we can take this obviously and scale it out from there. Like if you want to talk about some UI, not UI auto, just some basic automation. Like you can integrate now SharePoint, Teams we can go to with it. In demos, I have many times where we've got customers that use Teams and they want to, have an event that occurs off of Teams. We can integrate with that for it. So this is really a good way to get exposed to it, right? To really move forward with it. It looks like we got a new follower as well. Chumbi196, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
But you've got hundreds of other apps that you can connect to. I mean, the other platforms to connect to.
The count at last check was over 475 or 462 or 465 or something like that. It's
ridiculous.
Crazy. It's a crazy ecosystem. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I've done some prototyping with Dropbox too. So just as an example, sending data out of Business Central, really in a very similar scenario where you create a job, but now you want to create a Dropbox folder and send out emails. And I mean, that's possible too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I know we've said it in the past, but pay attention. I mean, Google is in there, Salesforce is in there, SAP, Oracle, like Microsoft is, the big major players. Like you'll see peppered in there, a lot of not startups, but some boutique firms and particulars and whatnot when it comes to these connectors. But, when you start seeing direct competition show up here, Microsoft wants to handshake, right? Like it's a win for everybody. If you decide to go a different route, why should that be a blocker? Why should that be a barrier to getting the right solutions in the right places for the right people in the right systems? So it's pretty crazy to see the development effort for this platform.
Yeah, it's getting pretty crazy. Well, Marcus, thank you for sharing with that. That's awesome. I mean, that's a great start to the conversation. I know, Adam, you've got some content now too, and I don't know if you want to share your screen. I'm having us
I'll just
just
talk. I'll
chatting.
just talk through it today.
Go for it. Hey.
Can you
I'm going to wait for
imagine?
chat. Chat's like, oh,
Can you
we need to
imagine?
see something.
Let's bring up the deck. No, we're not doing that. We're gonna look at stuff. So can you see everything okay here?
Yeah, we're good at this point.
We
So,
talked about, and I think starting with Marcus's rundown there is awesome because it highlights this theme that we keep coming back to. I would say if not every confab, then every other confab, this level of accessibility. So taking big, daunting, scary concepts or technologies or buzzwords or phrases and seeing that and going, oh, I'm never gonna build an intelligent bot. I'm never gonna build a machine learning model. I'm never going to. Microsoft is really stripping that away and instilling a lot of confidence in makers because this is more accessible than ever. So for point requirements like Marcus had kind of displayed, and we walked through, it's not scary. Marcus, you even propped it up and said, look, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, but it's direct and it's intuitive. What we're going to take a look at today is a newer feature that takes UI scripting essentially and rolls that into what they're calling the process advisor. And I got really hyped when I first heard about this because, from a QA perspective, we can build test scripts. We can say, if that, then this, then this, then this, here's the output. So for actually testing solutions and going through a UI and being able to capture and record automatically all of your steps along the way, but then taking it to another level and recording across users and having multiple recording sessions and being able to cogently analyze that and bring together a process map, that's not powerful for just quality assurance folks and for testers. That's really powerful for business analysts and actually drawing meaningful lines between how we're getting from point A to point B to point C for quote generation, for anything like that. So the tool we're looking at today is technically in preview. I want to make sure that I'm being very upfront about that. But it's just, I played with this like all of last night and it's so cool. It's so cool. So let's go take a look. So here I am in Power Automate and you'll see, we've got our normal, Marcus, I'm using your Zoom it again. It's just so nice. It's so great.
It's a cool product, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. We have our normal bread and butter stuff up top, but you'll see down below the AI builder that we've got this process advisor. So what I'll do is crack that open. And I've got a process already that I built and recorded. We'll focus on that for here and now. But the idea of the process advisor is taking a process, so lead to opportunity management or case closure processes or document generation processes, and bringing that down, drawing that down into discrete steps that are recorded in an analyzer that we can play back, that we can reference, and that at a broader level we can visualize and assess and draw conclusions from. Again, this is big for business analysts. It's taken a second to think here. I apologize for the delay, but we're going to get there.
Look at what happens in live demos.
We're going to get there. It'll happen, hopefully.
And I bet you if you hit F5, it'll do it faster.
Oh gosh, I'm sure my cache is just bloated right now. But yeah, so we'll try to load this back up. But this process advisor is awesome, and it's very intuitive. So just to kind of set the stage here a little bit, what it does is have you set up a project or a process. So you name it. You can share that out with other stakeholders or other doers, other folks that can contribute to recording that process. And what it'll do is record each of those users, going through that particular process. For my example, what I did was it's a quote generation. It's a document output. So I went to my opportunity, I generated my quote, I kicked out the actual document itself, and that was the process. Now I did another recording where somebody went right to the quote. Like they skipped the opportunity stuff, they generated the quote, and then they generated that quote document. And so there are multiple ways to go through a process or to get that intended output, and it captures everything along the way. This is taken forever right now.
Of course, there's always maintenance on a stream, right? When we're going through and doing something, there's always something going on.
Yeah. So, oh, look, guys, it looks like something went wrong.
Imagine that. I couldn't tell when we were actually waiting for it spinning around, right?
Yeah, well,
so when did they add this? When?
Process Advisor, I think, was announced the beginning of the year, and
Okay.
I hadn't touched it until recently here. And if this doesn't work today, I will be so upset because I stayed up late doing this stuff. Um,
And what we can do as well is I can flip to mine for a little bit as we go through this. Oh,
oh,
there it goes.
oh,
The
all
hiccup.
right,
The hiccup.
all right. Well, at least, folks on the stream, at least you're going to get solid color commentary as we are waiting for technology to load up for us. So
Demo
here I have
environment
my
too. Remember,
proposal.
that's the other thing too, right? This is the Contoso demo environment, right? Is that what these are?
Shared
Yeah.
servers.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
always going to run into a little hiccup. If somebody else is being the noisy neighbor, that's why we have API throttle limitations now these days.
Exactly. There we go.
What I did was I'm in my process. I've got this proposal distribution. Now, this proposal is a quote. It's a quote document. So what we're doing is, I have a little description actually in there. So process for how we pull down quotes from D365 sales and distribute, if you've got like a contract lifecycle system or e-sign, or, it's a separate thing. It's chunked out separately. We know we can do all of this in Dynamics 365, but in this scenario, we're really just trying to obtain that quote document. So you can see I've got a couple of recordings here. I told you I was up late. That says 4:42 a.m. So, and what you do is you name the process. So I named it, I gave it a description, and then you go into your sharing cycle. So these are the other folks that will be helping you out record the process, or that will be lending voice to, or being the the analysis expert for this process. So I've shared this out with Alicia and Jeff, and you can email, hey, you're part of this process, go come check it out, go help out. I'm not going to do that right now, and I've already shared this out with those end users. So you can see who it's being shared with. You can designate ownership as well as just contributors, so probably some nitty-gritty QA folks that are in the mix. But what you do from this point is you actually you spin up Power Automate Desktop for the recording capabilities, and it will take that recording, identify key snapshots along the way, and then analyze that. It's just so cool. So I've got a couple of recordings all ready to go, but I'll kind of give you the long and short of the recording process. So if I go to new recording to add to this process to keep getting more refined and better and more intelligent with how we're going through these processes in the system, I'll open up the recorder. What this will do is call to my desktop and open up Power Automate Desktop capabilities, and it will queue up the recordings. This popped up on the side. Power Automate Desktop is loading up, and the recorder will jump up after it's logged me in and all is good. So here I have my desktop recorder. What I'll do, because I'm only working off of one monitor and displaying one monitor, I'll click start recording and then drag D365. I think I've got it up. I'll have to log in here, but that's fine. So I'll start recording here in a second, and you can see, I'll just actually keep this on screen. When I click start recording, you'll be able to, let's in fact do this. I wonder if this is going to work out.
Do it focus on it on the right? I don't think it focuses.
Come on now. Oh. No, it's not going to. Shoot. Yeah. But we can at very least just kind of keep this up and look at you. So you can see the steps that I'm doing, that I'm making in the UI are being cataloged. And you can see as I hover over any of the UI elements, they're being highlighted. So if our first step in our process was to literally open D365, this is where I can go and shoot into my maker portal, and I'm just going to open up my apps and open up D365 sales, but all of these steps are being cataloged as this is opening up. And so, keep in mind that there will be a little bit of cleanup. We don't want a bunch of gunk in there. So if you're delaying like I am and kind of going through a bunch of hoops that aren't necessary for the core process, make sure you're starting in the right place. But I will go to my apps here quick. We're at 11:28, time check. Got a bunch of apps in here. Hopefully they load faster than Power Automate was able to. So I will go into my Sales Hub. And once this loads up, again, it's keeping up. I know it's themed from my demo this morning. Nice bright green up top. That's fine. We'll keep it that way. So once this loads up, this is really where we can probably scoop out all the stuff we've already recorded. But we'll keep pressing forward here. It's going to load, and as I'm hovering over these UI elements, they're being highlighted. I'll go down to my opportunities and open up my opportunities so you can see clicks, you can see drag and drop elements, you can see data entry, all of those different steps in the process recorder that's off to the right-hand side. And once this loads, this is where I can then jump into my opportunity. If I wanted to generate that quote. Come on now. We'll go into, it's just the load times are really, with the video stream and all the streams up, heavy media, it's a little bogged down right now. Apologies for that stream. But once this opportunity jumps up, then we'll go, I think for the sake of brevity, I'll just kind of talk through my process here. I added products, I went to quotes. From the quotes there, I kicked out a document. So I brought up the export to PDF and pulled that down to SharePoint, and then actually saved it locally to my machine as well. So it's as simple as that, a process as simple as that. But you can think of how powerful this would be for QA testers, for business analysts to really refine and make these processes better and more efficient. So I'll stop my recording right now. We've talked through, I already have a couple of recordings that I've done for this. So we'll stop that, and it's pulling that in. We'll go back to our process advisor. It's saving my recording. This popped up off to the side, so that's going to take a second to think. It'll pop up with, got it, your recording was saved, so that will shoot into the Dataverse, and it's now processing. So it'll take a little bit, and it's kind of staging and getting ready for that analysis. But in the mix here, you can see that we have that in progress, and I've got 2 recordings that I've already executed on here. Now, when this is ready, you go in, if I go to this recording here, this is where we do all the cleanup. And this is where we add activities. So think of activities as sort of the logical grouping of steps. So here I have opening Dynamics 365. Then I have generating my quote. Then I have exporting to PDF. Then I have downloading that quote to my machine. So these are all the nested steps underneath those main tasks or main activities. And if I click into any of these, this is where it's really cool to be able to see it's capturing and intelligently defining attribute level that I'm interacting with, section or form level that I'm interacting with. It's hitting the DOM and bringing that down into this sequence of steps with screenshots.
That's
and
really
you can
cool.
see that underneath my Open D365 task here, this activity, this will be, it's a drag and drop UI element. So I'm basically just navigating. If I click into this top one, hey, that makes sense. I was in D365 and I went to my dashboards. Then I went to my opportunities. For this process, this is where I subverted the opportunity, and this is where I went right to quotes. So the first step you can see, I went to quotes. Then I started actually creating a fresh quote. So it captures all of these steps. And at the end of all of this, there are a few more steps in the mix here. I want to be transparent about that. But when we're ready to analyze this, we stage them as ready to be analyzed. You can see this top one is not analyzed. I'm not going to start analyzing it right now because that will probably gunk things up again. But if I go into the analytics up top here, this is where we can see some really cool stuff. Now, this is going to take all of those, the main activities, the big rocks, as well as those nested child steps, all of those UI steps that we made along the way, and it will visualize those. So you can see it's actually loading a pretty hefty Power BI report right now, a Power BI analysis workspace. So we can see deviations and variance in the process. We can see how many users contributed to this process overall. And when this loads up on the left-hand side, it's so awesome to be able to see this. We can actually see those discrete trajectories of how users got to that document output. So here, when it loaded up, we can see our starting point right here. We can see that main task. Here's that first task that I grouped those initial, just opening up and going to find our opportunity right there. Now, this is the cool part. Here's what we should do as a best practice, standard operating procedure. We have to open up our opportunity, kick out a quote, kick out a document, but Adam number 2 over here decided to subvert the whole dang thing. So we can actually see even splits on how many times these users are deviating from SOP. So this is where we get into that meat and potatoes for business analysis factor. So it's doing all of this and recording all of this based on an actual visual heavy media recording, bringing that down into discrete steps. We categorize those main QA steps along the way, and then we can make this actionable. We can go get better. We can go coach. We can go do. So this process advisor, while it's still in preview and it's pretty brand new, this is really exciting. If you want to keep getting better, if you have like a UI UX center of excellence, if you have process analysis factors as you're developing these artifacts, these solutions, these applications, this is going to be paramount to making sure that we're doing things the right way, to understanding where we might be deviating from the center line, but then drawing that down into actionable insights and KPIs from a performance perspective and from a UI flow perspective. So this has just been awesome to play with.
That is very cool. So I've a couple questions, Adam, around this. So typically, are we using this in the like the validation process of the validation, I don't know, phase of a process? Like, so do you have to create like multiple recordings? Like you would say, Scott, go do your process, and I'd say, okay. So I'd go through and do a quote with it, record it, right, and then send that over to the process advisor. Then we'd have somebody else do the same thing and basically do a bunch of employees go through that process. And then it's going to look at those and then look at the deviations and look at the changes of what people did in that process, right? As part of that. Is that correct?
That's where you're going to get the most horsepower. We could definitely, as a single contributor, go through a process just to visualize it, to throw maybe into documentation. But the real power here is to see how users are going through those SOP cycles, and to not just glean where there might be variances, but then also do something about it, so we can bring that back to our user base, and we can say, look, 75% of you are doing it the right way. This isn't a tattle sort of, scenario, but we have to get better, and this is how we should be doing it. And this just helps out automate, some of that's more of the business side of things. From a technical perspective, this is where we can use that recorder to really almost debug, and understand at a very low level some of those finer details in terms of making that process better.
Yeah, and Nat just said something, recordings would be good for training or support as well, showing someone who doesn't have the steps how to, and I 100% agree with that. Another aspect too would be, when you were looking at that timeline visually, I can see that some people are bypassing the opportunity. And like, let's say best practice is always go to the opportunity. Well, remember, there are reasons why you deviate from best practice. And let's say that this time, like let's say you needed 30 seconds in the process, right, for some reason for time. Well, this shows you where the candidates are for time analysis, so you can actually do some optimization and reduce that time footprint requirement that you have. And I think that's really slick.
Yeah. So again, brand new, a big asterisk here to double back on it. Preview. So subject to change. Microsoft could yank this in a moment's notice. They could completely shift how it's being displayed and worked with and blah, blah, blah. But from what I'm seeing, this is really powerful stuff. And, this is the uniqueness that Power Automate can provide, not just in, like we said before, simple data updates, parent-child cascading updates, or calling web services and going and doing, but also contributing at a performance and process level. It's not just about discrete data, it's about how we're working with that data. So it's filling in a lot of those gaps too. So very exciting. This is, just as a note, this is only available, I think, as far as I've seen, in Power Automate Online. It uses desktop components, and it calls Power Automate Desktop to go do the UI recording and everything. But go to powerautomate.com, go to the process advisor that's in the menu there, and you'll be able to find it.
So have we we have Task Recorder inside of FinOps apps, right? And you guys have seen that in the past. So I think we've demoed that on stream as well.
Yeah, we did like Easy Repro.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So my head is just going like, so you did this with Dynamics 365 Sales. What happens if you had Business Central? I mean, or a desktop app? I mean, can this process advisor scale to that as well?
You want to try it?
Yeah, let's try it. Go. It'd be dynamics365.com, I think, is where we typically go.
I had it saved.
Did you?
I don't know where the heck it is anymore. That's fine. So you just go to dynamics365.com.
Yep. And then sign in. And I hope you have access. I thought you did, because the environment I gave you a while ago. So up here, you'll do the sign.
I'm in a demo. I'm in a demo environment.
Okay. Let's not worry about it. But you can use. Yep. Go ahead.
So I might still have access from the desk. I pulled down the Business Central desktop app.
Oh,
so
okay,
I want to see if I have access to that still.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is
Looking
that,
good.
you know, task recorder is always something that people see, and then when they, you know, if they don't want to go with finance and operations and they want to use Business Central,
Yeah.
for example, it's kind of a bummer because they don't have a way to document the process with this. Now, with this,
ISP.
yeah, exactly, right? With
Yep.
this, because it's agnostic, it's showing you step by step of what occurs. That's pretty slick in itself, but does it have like export options or anything else like that yet that you've seen, Adam? To
Oh, hey, we're in there. Cool. I haven't seen anything myself.
Okay.
I think it's probably pretty self-contained.
Yeah, try a new
So
recording real quick and just see if it,
yeah,
right?
I'm not. I
We
should be creating a new process, but we're
Yeah,
gonna, for the
yeah,
sake of
exactly.
confab
Right?
here,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna be
Confab it.
doing that. Okay, so different process, but we're gonna see what we can pull in from a Business Central perspective here.
Yeah,
So
and this is a BC, you know, it's the app, right? So it's not a web
yeah,
page, so it may not have the hooks for the controls, but we'll see really quickly here.
here's my recorder. Starting the recording.
Do do do. Yeah, because it's not highlighting yet. So the web, as long as you're using the web, I would expect
Oh, there it is.
it does have
Not
it.
doing it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Group as you go
Okay.
ahead and click on it.
Receipt journals. I'm actually gonna slide this over a little bit.
And it would probably work better with the web interface because I know that there's snap-ins that they add for extensions into the Chrome environment and that type of stuff. So that's pretty cool.
I'm just making updates. I'm like doing random things in the UI here. So, so I just opened up Business Central, the desktop app. We're using the recorder for that. I'll go ahead and finish the recording. It looks like we're good. You know,
Yeah,
so this
that's awesome.
This is using the elements do feel similar to Easy Repro when you're like, especially when you're kind of scanning over like UI elements and objects that are there. So for those that have been in that tool before, it's gonna kind of feel like home.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it looks like we've got that ready to analyze.
And it shows up there as part of it. Cool. And then
it's not gonna know. I have to like categorize the activities. You know, the steps.
Oh yeah.
The activities. So it's gonna be weird. But yeah, we just pulled up, kind of bridging that gap. If you're using Business Central, whether that's the desktop app or the online app, or FinOps, you know, finance supply chain. Yeah, we'll be able to use this not just for, you know, this isn't a CE tool. This isn't a CRM tool. It's meant to be scalable, and it's meant to you know, capture across multiple applications and styles and whatnot. So a lot of fun. Go check it out. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. And Rob asked another question. Can we record the steps to build a model-driven app or automate in order to demonstrate to others how they might go about building of a flow? I mean, I would theoretically expect so in some ways.
Could, yeah.
It might be a little harder on the designer.
I feel like if you go into, if I access one of these recordings with the tasks in play here, I feel like that would be a little tedious. Like if I were a new maker, and I'm going and trying to find like an SLP on that, the visualized process might give me a good direction, but at that point we might as well be just creating documentation, you know, just sort of spelling it out in easier to consume ways.
Maybe it'll be better maturity. Yeah, exactly. Maybe maturity will help with it too. Yep. Well, that was awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. That was great content, because I can see being used everywhere, and you know, I hope Microsoft doesn't do anything. Like I could build off of that. Like you could process automation. You could look at validation of the process, upgrades.
That tie to DevOps, man.
Yeah, exactly. Hey.
Out of preview mode, let's shoot these steps right into test cases in DevOps and tie those to features and debugging. I assume that's probably the bridge that will be built at some point in the future.
Yep. All right, so my stuff, let's kind of wrap it up here. I've got some stuff to go through as well. I'm going to share my screen, though, with my fellow confabbers as well. Make sure I've got the right desktop. Start sharing it. You guys see yourselves. You will not see yourselves when we get over there. And I'm going to move stuff over. Ta-da! All right, let's go ahead and share on stream what I'm looking at. All right, guys, so I approached it very similar to Adam in terms of the tools, and kind of with Marcus as well in terms of the content that I wanted to tackle with it. So what I tackled was, we've got old applications, right? So modern applications and all the snap-ins through Power Automate to get to that, that RPA type capability, that's a lot easier, right? Because there's web services, there's actions you can interact with. You basically can link them together pretty easily throughout that process. Whereas when we start talking about legacy apps, right? Everyone loves legacy apps because they're impossible to integrate. I'm just giving all the perks with it, right? Impossible to integrate, old technology, built off of RPG possibly. Like, there's all these different things that, are bad, but at the same point, sometimes it costs a lot to replace them. And maybe
COBOL.
You just need, right? Or maybe you just need some simple.
COBOL's come up.
Has it?
In the last quarter, I've brought up COBOL way more times than I should.
I've been in an RPG conversation with a bunch of people lately, so it's been fun. So, but point is that we need to create something that we can span both legacy and our cloud enabled or even more modern enabled applications, right? So how do we do that? And so that's what I did as part of this process. Is I'm like, well, I want to create an app that allows me to maintain customers, and from those customers, I want it to go add to my billing system. And my billing system is Navision 2.0, right? So it is the granddaddy of BC, the great granddaddy, maybe is what we can look at it as. And it is not modern. It does not have any capabilities that are very fancy. And, if I just show you guys just really quickly here, Navision 2.0 and open it up.
So you're in a VM right now.
I'm in a VM in this one right here running. And this is, this looks like a modern interface nowadays, guys. So fully web enabled, as you can see. So this is our old interface that we had with Nav, even with the old menu bar before we moved then to the menu suite or the ribbon bar concepts that were inside of here. And I think that this product was introduced in 1998 is the introduction of it. So yeah, we're running an old software system here. But you know what? General ledger and accounts receivable and accounts payable in this organization, they haven't really changed, right? And even at Nav 2.0, cash application, cash management, reconciliation, all the GLAPAR stuff and basic customer stuff, it's supported. So, great. Now, that shouldn't limit us to become more modern, though, right? And so that's what I tackled with this. Obviously, you probably would upgrade this, but in the rare circumstances that you have a legacy system that is a thick MFC, and we're talking the technology before Windows 7 and 8 and 10 introduced to make development easier, you would classically develop in a very to create a window, it took like 1,000 lines of code to create basically one window. I'm exaggerating, but it was crazy. But the point here then is that from a Power Automate perspective, right now I'm inside of my CE demonstration environment. You can see we've got our flow set up for this. If I go to my solutions, this goes to the first thing of people asking about, I need to create a solution or I need something that I can move between dev, test, prod. I need to group everything together, right? Well, a lot of the components that we look at, for example, for our UI flow, for example, here as well, they're built into the Power Platform in Dataverse and into the solution concept. So if I want to take what I've made here as an example and give this to someone else or promote it or go through a full development life cycle, at least more of a development life cycle, here I've got all the stuff that's part of that solution. So I've got my desktop flow connection that I have. I've got my flow that sends it to my desktop flow. I've got a table. I've got a multi-choice option here. And then I have a Canvas app, right? And so what I said I wanted to do here is I want to be able to create a customer in a application that's easier to use, that's mobile. And so I decided to select a Canvas app as part of that. But what I want to do is I create customers is I also want them to add into our Nav 2.0 environment as we go through that process. So how does this look then from a Power Automate perspective? So let's take a look at the inner workings first. First off, if I go ahead and we take a look at our flow real quick, pretty basic in some ways. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. and just reflect. Remember, this is what's called when a Power App is called, basically, or when the Power App inserts a record with it. And you can see from a Power App, I actually have a trigger on purpose because I wanted to highlight it in the demonstration, where I'm, putting in variables. On that variable, I'm grabbing a row that is from my integration customer.
Look at those shiny new
I know,
icons,
it
by
just
the way.
happened. It just happened.
Yep.
Yesterday, that was not there, I swear.
I'm so psyched that it's green. No,
It is.
They updated it, I think, like last week or the week prior.
Was it?
Like, yeah, they've got their scale groups though, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to be incremental.
That's
I
cool.
was jazzed that it was green. So cool.
So what we're all excited about, everyone on stream, this icon right here is the new. This is the new Dataverse icon, right?
Yep.
That's the new Dataverse icon. So now you see what it is. First on Confab. All right, so update a row next as part of this. So as you can see, I'm grabbing something, I'm updating something, and I always grab rows even though the Power App can pass it, just so I know what the data is that's actually committed into the environment, right? And then I'm doing some initialization, so I'm building a JSON string that I am then passing then to the Power BI desktop flow using Power Automate Desktop for this, right? So this is really the cloud portion of it. We've got an app that inserts a record into a table, and then in that app, we click on an action, and that action initializes this flow. And then what happens with this flow is if I go ahead and leave this, and we go back into our other area here, our desktop flows, this desktop flow then runs as part of that process. And what I can see here then, if I'm going to open it up over in my other environment just really quickly, because this actually has the current version installed of Power Automate Desktop. If I go to my solutions in here, same view that we were looking at before, and what I'm going to do here is show just really quickly here the solution. If it goes fast, come on now.
Well, it won't be worse than mine.
Yeah, it's like, it just crawls every now and then, right, as we go through this. So the point here, though, is that these solutions then contain all that detail, and then from that flow, we have a desktop flow that needs to be called. And on this desktop flow, what I want to do is I want to edit it just to show you what it would look like with it. So I've got my desktop flow, and it connects to a gateway that's related to it to go through and then do that particular process. So what I did, just candidly, is that on this virtual machine that we're on inside of here, I have the Power Automate Desktop that's installed, right? And on here as well, I installed a gateway on the machine. And this gateway then connects back up into the Microsoft Cloud service so that when that flow executes, it knows where to go, basically, to direct that connection. And then the flow that runs locally then on this computer with using the Power Automate Desktop really is this flow, the create customer flow that I created inside of here. And what you can see then is that it'll have a bunch of steps that it goes through that I did the recording just like Adam did before, that I created a recording with, and then I massaged it to really work well for the process I wanted to tackle.
Clean out the gunk.
Exactly. So the variable, remember how we said we were creating that JSON? Because I'm passing from another app the values that I want to create a customer for, I'm passing that information into here as an input. And then I'm going through a bunch of send key operations as I go through this, and I put pauses in here because it's pretty cool. Like it can instantly almost drive the UI perspective. Like if you don't put pauses in it, it flies through it.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. But I use send keys with it because that was a better way to integrate that legacy app for it. You could do so much more, though, because if you look at the UI automation portion of it, desktop, drag and drop, click on UI elements that are exposed, because each element has a control name that's usually with it. So if you think about your legacy app and all the controls that are used to build that, these UI automation capabilities can really make it easy for you to go through and do that process. Now, at the same point then, if I close this all out, we'll just get it kind of cleaned up. Once we've gone through that and we've got everything hooked up, really the next part is just to kind of show, how does that work from a functionality perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Canvas app. Go ahead and press play. And For security reasons, I need to authenticate again. It's probably seeing some bot-like behavior from my login. That's a whole story about Teams that some people may know about, where I've been locked out of Teams because it thought I was a bot for some reason.
Oh, that was a rough week.
Yeah, it was. It was not a fun week for me. So, okay, here's the integration customer. So, basically what I want to do is I want to create a customer, and I want that customer to generate something inside of Business Central. So I'm going to type in, let's go, Marcus Confab Scott is going to be...
I'm not going to lie, Scott. I'll talk over your data entry here.
Yeah.
Whenever I see, whenever we're like looking at a Canvas app together or something, I just think of us like at Punch Bowl Social at the bar, like pulling up. This is what we do, people. Like we go out for a beer, and obviously not during quarantine, but pre-COVID, and geek out on on Canvas apps at the bar. It's a real thing.
Yep. It is. It's a lot of fun too. Yep. So here we have the app, right? So this could be on your phone. Your workforce can be out doing their stuff, and you have an integration strategy that you don't want to pay a partner to do it, or there's many reasons why you could have this scenario exist. But I have my integration customer here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the send action, and we should then see, for example, in the background here, in just a little bit, we'll wait for it. All of a sudden, there's going to be this white lightning that's going to occur. It's like all of a sudden just doing stuff. And really what's happening is, remember, that Power app had that send action that calls, for example, then that Cloudflow. That Cloudflow gets everything ready from a data perspective, and then it sends it to the desktop flow. And you can see now,
Scott,
hands up.
You're not touching anything.
Hands up. Yeah,
I'm not touching anything.
There it is. The first screen populated. Fills out specific fields I need, closes out the application, and it's done. Right?
So cool.
So that was an app that is, what are we at now? How many years old is that? 22 years old?
Yeah.
22-year-old app that I just automated using the, UI flow capabilities. And just to prove it out, we'll open up the app. We'll do it the old-fashioned way of going to the customers and looking at it. And there is the Marcus Confab Scott with my super contact that's related to it. It defaulted our general business and customer posting groups that are inside of here. It defaulted the payment terms information. And then eventually it went back to the beginning and closed everything out through that process. Right.
I think the first time we did this, when it first came out, I think it was honestly one of my first confabs with you guys. This is a much better business case than playing solitaire, if you recall that.
I do remember seeing the solitaire, and that's where I got
I built a UI flow to go play solitaire. It was fun. It's funny, but this is powerful stuff to bring it to another serious level. Like, Microsoft. I think it's a little funny that when they demo this, they don't call back to old products. Nav and GP and stuff. They don't want to billboard that, so they have their own little console apps that they've spun up. But this is awesome.
Yeah.
If you had to estimate, Scott, how long did it take you to do that?
It took me an hour. And so Shumber196 had a comment, what was the stress points doing this and what does it break? So, there are some very specific requirements that are dependent upon the application. An example of that, I couldn't use the desktop recorder to identify the controls, like customer, for example, inside of here, because the way that the developers made Navision financials back in the day is that this is all code that we create that runs, and so it doesn't use the standard MFC controls that Microsoft uses for their applications and most programs use. So like when I clicked on customer, it thought I was clicking on this entire section right here, basically this entire element that's part of it. So you have to incorporate, like if it's a really old legacy app, most of them allow for keyboard commands that are there for quick keys that you can do with it. And so I had to go through in my desktop app, as you probably saw a little bit with when I went through it, I had to go through and massage those key commands that were being sent to make that work really well, right? So that is absolutely one area that I would say is a stress point that's related to it. Another one, the app doesn't understand the state of the application. And an example of that, if I take this application and I close it out and then I reopen it, you can see, even though I had that front screen on, that the window is focused on sales and marketing as opposed to general ledger at the top up here. So if I have a command, for example, where I press the down arrow and then I open it up, I'm in a wrong section already with it. So you've got to think through from an older application perspective as well. What's the state of the application? And ideally what you can do, like I thought about it after I designed this, like the way that we keep track of this detail at the old version is that there's a file called the ZUP file. As part of this process, you could clear out the ZUP file, right? So that it's always at a state that is always clean when the application opens for the interaction. So you've got to think through things like that when you go through it. But once that's done, and if you imagine that this is running, because this is a VM that's running, I could log out of it and just leave it there. And as long as I go through that test every time and ensure that it's succeeding with it, I won't have an issue with it to be able to go through and then drive that.
And to bring this to another level, we've actually talked to a few folks recently where we're using the exact same technology. So we're using RPA capabilities to scoop into SAP organizations. So receiving an invoice, for instance, or a PO from a designated inbox and taking that and simultaneous concurrent tracks of on one track, we're going to drop it in SAP. We're going to extract data using the AI builder to pull down discrete data points and plunk those data points into a completely different business system, SAP in that instance, and then on a concurrent track go and do with the normal Power Automate components, to either send or distribute or notify or what have you. So there's a glaring reason why RPA capabilities are here now. Everybody's talking about them because, as you just said, Scott, that took you conservatively an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We didn't throw $12,000 at a middleware integration. We didn't throw at a hosted middleware. Nothing against Kingswaysoft. Love the tool. We all love the tool. There are some infrastructural and cost implications to riding on. And there are so many more things you get with something like Kingswaysoft. But for the sake of this conversation, like you did that in under 10 hours. With native tools.
And that's
the story tells itself to me.
It does.
Amazing.
And the thing that, just to note, I know on stream, a lot of people that look at this, they're like, well, this is a sales stream because it's the pre-sales architects. It's like, it is to a degree. Like what we try to make sure of though as well is that these are technologies that can scale for your organization. Because the way we look at it, we're not just looking at it from the shiny object perspective. How do you manage this so that when you look at the delivery perspective with it, that you can create it as a solution like I did, that you can have repeatable processes that you can incorporate into it, that you can scale it out so that you have governance around it as well from an organization perspective. And those are deeper conversations than we typically can get on a confab with it, but know that that's definitely on our plate, and it's generally something that we have a deeper conversation with if you have questions with as part of it, or if you even ask on stream like a specific question. I think, Adam, you've brought up, for example, the white paper that Microsoft has that tells you really how to manage your Power Platform / Dataverse environments, because so many companies have ran into that pain point. These are things that have been thought through already that we can share with you that make it easier then to manage these. So
we're not going to pull any punches either, Scott. And Marcus and Scott and I were just talking before we kicked the stream on. Like I'm always frustrated with Power Automate to a degree in terms of like option set or choice values. When you see the integer value and the friendly name, well, getting that friendly name stubbed in or displayed or thrown into a virtual agent, or pulling the actual text instead of the numeric value. That's not a fun process, and it's not intuitive. So there are some scaling issues or some finer points, much like in the RPA that you just walked through, the UI flow there. Like there will be some trial and error. There are some stop gaps that we have to lean on, and we'll be very honest about that because we want our clients, we want the people we're talking to, the viewers on Confab, to understand some of those limitations and not promise the world. So it's a great point you bring up.
All right. Well, yeah, Dave, Mr. Stallman, it feels like our days of interacting with big systems are numbered. Yeah, very well. Could be to a degree. Like there's a lot that end users could tackle to make this easier. Like it just, there's just a lot of legs for it, I guess. All right, so for kind of wrap up, first off, geeky deliciousness.
Oh God, thank you. Yes.
Did you forget?
So, no, I did, but here it's ready to go.
Ready?
So,
Ready?
I have a custom wormwood dice vault that my wonderful wife got me. So it's
Wormwood.
engraved on the top, engraved on the back, actually with a Mass Effect.
I didn't even notice that. You've got the Mass Effect T-shirt on.
Yeah, so it's got a Mass Effect quote on the back, but inside is really the geeky deliciousness, and that is Dispel Dice had a Kickstarter, $2.4 million Kickstarter, was the highest grossing dice custom tabletop gaming D&D dice Kickstarter that was out there until another one came along. But
These made out of platinum or something?
this is, you probably can't really see it. Come here, light. Eldritch.
Oh, wow.
The color is Eldritch Fire, and yeah, my wife got me these, and we just got them the other week, and it's awesome. They're so cool, and go check them out if you have the time.
That is awesome. All right, just to kind of wrap up then as well. So Thursday, May 6th, what we have right now scheduled is our new features to empower your remote workforce. So we've been talking about field service, scheduling, all those customer
Teams
portal
as a
capabilities, Teams. So
Yep.
we really want to focus on some of those features that you should be looking at that we consistently use all the time when we're going through our demonstrations and how we address solutions now. So that'll be a fun one. And yeah, I think that's what we have on our plate for the next 2 weeks, and we're going to have some more updates on some of the other content that we're going to be publishing out there as well for the following 2 weeks as well. So,
and keep an eye out for some broader Stone Ridge events too. I just wanted to throw out a little.
That's right, like the
little
manufacturing
teaser.
conference that's coming up.
We've got a manufacturing summit that's coming up. We're already planning Fall Connect. So just know that outside of the Confab vehicle here, we've got a lot of. I think Dave's got a webinar today or tomorrow this week. So we've got a lot on the books. So go take a look and see if there's something that piques your interest, because we've got a lot of great material from a lot of different resources on the team coming up over the next however long.
It's going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun. So with that, everyone, thank you again for joining. We will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, have fun creating, and hopefully by in the next 2 weeks, you can come back to us on chat here and tell us what you created in RPA and UI Flow. I'd love to hear it. So anyways, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.